Okay, first up this week is going to be Master of the Hoard, a Reincarnation LitRPG adventure, Dragon Core Chronicles, book number 1, written by Lars McMuller. It is 471 pages, it is $4.99, it's available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. A new world of magic and violence. One crazy starting bonus. Major downside, no thumbs. Carl was a regular construction foreman, not the worst, not the best, and definitely not the thinnest. Even so, he didn't deserve that heart attack. He really didn't deserve being reborn into a magic-filled dog-eat-dog world as a dragon. To be fair, it's nice to be at the top of the food chain. Now Carl just needs to learn how magic works, which monsters are safe to eat, and why his hoard is so important to him. Dealing with everything changing is hard enough, but he has enemy dragons incoming, hostile environments, and foes constantly trying to get bragging rights by taking down a dragon. At the end of the day, Carl needs to learn how to build a life worth living in a world where might makes right. So there you go. It's actually a really good description of the story. Some of the not so deep like backstory or the world building, but yeah. It starts off as a transported to a fantasy RPG world where the main character ends up as a newly hatched dragon. It very quickly develops into a dungeon core story. That's really what it is. Except that the dungeon core is the dragon hoard. That's the interface for the main character, who's a dragon, to expand his base, upgrade his minions, add traps, magical services, magical towers or whatever, and whatever other features are allowed by the system. But at its core, it's a dungeon core story. So if you like dungeon core stories, you're probably gonna like this. If you like dragons and kind of base building mechanics, with some light world building, you're also probably really going to enjoy this, and I did. The story gets into the RPG fantasy world very quickly. It's a real snappy entrance, and within the first 10% of the story, you really just find the main character as he's hatched, as he introduced into the world, as he gets his bearings, and by the 15% mark, bam, kingdom building, dungeon building, and it stays there the entire rest of the story. That's why it's called a Dragon Core novel. It's a combination of dragons and dungeon core. There it goes. There the whole time. I was honestly surprised. I didn't expect it from the novel description, but once I got into it, I was like, oh, okay, this isn't bad. Like I like dungeon core stories. They're a simple concept of, you have a system where you're essentially building bases and traps and defending your dungeon from invaders or invading something else. And you get a variety of monsters and pretty regular action and lots of nice upgrades, not only for the dragon himself or the core, but also for minions. And you get to do some exploration there. So I'm all into that stuff. And that's what happens here. The main character, instead of like spawning creatures, he gets minions that he has to take care of. He moves into a new layer. He gets a hoard that unlocks that kingdom building, dungeon building kind of stuff. And so there's plenty of RPG game mechanics here, including traps, illusions, deception themes. There we go. And that those are all aspects so this is a really pretty decently gamified system, regular notifications and progressions and levels. And so all that good stuff if you're enjoying that. I think one of the things that probably lost me this a tiny bit was how the author chooses to use the monster main character aspect of the story. The main character is a dragon. He's technically a human who's reincarnated from our world into the body of a newly hatched dragon. And if you're looking for something that has like a very monstrous main character with like different moral values, this isn't really going to be it. The main character is essentially human, and all his mental respects and his issues of morality, the way he treats character, the minions, and his moral philosophizing. He does have the body of a dragon, and it's always a weird balancing act to keep those two things interesting and making a monster main character interesting, without reducing the main character and humanizing him too much. And this one definitely skews more towards humanizing the dragon character. And for some people, that's not an issue. Other people, like, if they're looking for more of a monstrous, main character, this isn't quite that. The main character does have evolutions that change the way he can fight and use some dragon powers. But for the most part, because the story is told from the perspective of the main character, you really get his philosophizing as a person, as a regular human. So that is what it is. On the RPG side of things, again, I mentioned that already. Lots of levels, increases in stats, dragon powers, racial evolutions, plenty of dungeon core kind of mechanics that are also able to be upgraded and increased. So all kinds of like nice speculative stuff that the author gives you, enough information so that you can kind of plan your own dungeon if you really wanted to. So plenty of stuff there. Overall, I thought it was a very entertaining story with the fun RPG progression for the main character and its minions. Again, if you like dungeon crawl stories, you're probably going to like this. So just keep that in mind. For me, it gets a real solid, good review score of 7.5 out of 10. That's Master of the Hoard, a Reincarnation LitRPG adventure, Dragon Core Chronicles, book number 1, with the score of 7.5 out of 10.